What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Caught by Happy podcast, where I talk to people who are living their best life. They love what they do despite the struggles, despite the setbacks, and those haters that tell them to stop, or that they suck, or that they're wasting their time. We're not about that here. We're about people who recognize what they're good at, what they enjoy, and they're willing to make the sacrifices to bring their dream into reality. You know, we talk to people who maybe have really been through it. You know, they've really been through the ringer, but they've come out the other side stronger, with more determination and with more focus to build that business, learn a new trade, turn a hobby into a side hustle, whatever it may be. You know, I love the fact that each of these episodes that we do here on Caught by Happy showcases a different journey. We all have goals deep down, or an idea of what our dream scenario would look like if we could spend our remaining days doing what makes us happy, what brings us a sense of pride and fulfillment. And that doesn't mean you need to quit your 9 to 5 in order to do it, because I know you need to get a paycheck. I know you need to support your family and you need to get that bread. But feeling the desire to wake up early on a Saturday to build a canoe out in the garage, or staying up late on a Wednesday to bang out another 1,000 words of that novel you're working on, that's inspirational stuff, man. I'm inspired by you people, so keep it up. And if you want to come on the podcast to talk about your hobby, your side hustle, or your business, let's do it. Email caughtbyhappy@gmail.com. We'll set it up. You can be the inspiration that another aspiring creative or builder or entrepreneur may need to get over the hump and take that first step. On a personal note, and I bring this up because I've mentioned it before on the podcast, I want to let you all know that we lost a good man on Monday, April 20th. My father-in-law was one of the hardest working individuals I've ever known. He was a dedicated family man who instilled that work ethic into his 3 daughters. He never missed an opportunity to tell us that he loved us. And he was proud of the women his daughters grew up to become. He loved his grandkids and taking them out to the garage to work on his Corvette or just mess around with tools. He was such a big presence in our lives, and I think we'll continue to feel that presence and hear his voice as we go on with the rest of our own lives, remembering those values he taught us all. Because we are in the time of coronavirus, we had a small service for immediate family only, and eventually we're going to celebrate his legacy with the many, many people who loved him at a later date. Today on the show, I'm talking with Mike Lunsford. Mike is the co-founder of the Great Geek Refuge, or GGR for short. He's been writing and podcasting for the better part of a decade, and GGR takes a bit of a different angle on, I guess, what some might call geek culture. If you're immersed in that world of going to conventions or just being a fan of Star Wars or Star Trek or Marvel movies or whatever, you've probably at some point felt maligned in some way or had your fandom questioned by, I'll just say it, douchebags, who think because you don't know how to speak Klingon or have the working knowledge of how to change the serpentine belts in the Batmobile that somehow you're not a true fan. GGR has a mission of welcoming everyone and never to talk down to someone like me, who really, I'm just in it for the entertainment value and not for dissecting the technical specifications on how a Romulan cloaking device works. I don't even know if that's a thing because, like I said, I'm just a casual fan. GGR doesn't just talk about comics or sci-fi or fantasy. They also discuss pop culture, music, sports, all sorts of stuff. They're a very welcoming crew, and I really enjoyed my chat with Mike. During this recording, about 5 or 6 minutes in, we had a nasty hailstorm roll through. I lost power. I had to reconnect with Mike about 20 minutes later when it came back on. So you're going to hear a little pause where I inserted some audio I recorded from my phone of the wind and the hail just for a second or two. Hey, you know, when you're recording a podcast, you got to be ready for anything, right? And hey, if your power goes out and you can't watch your favorite shows, at least you can read an ebook or listen to one if your device is charged. You got to check out the Kindle Unlimited program on Amazon. It's unlimited reading, unlimited listening. We're talking any device you might own, like an iPad, iPhone, or a Kindle reader. You can get millions of books, magazines, audiobooks that'll keep you engaged during a power outage or during this stay-home quarantine time. So sign up using the link in my show notes and you'll get 2 months completely free. 2 months of unlimited reading, unlimited listening. It's unlimited content, all right? So use the link in my show notes. All right, let's get on to talking with Mike Lunsford from the Great Geek Refuge. I think you'll really enjoy this chat, even if you're not into the quote-unquote nerdy stuff. He's putting a lot of time and effort into the GGR project because he loves it, and that's what we're all striving for, right? Loving what we do? Yes. Here's my chat with Mike Lunsford. Mike, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. This was a quite an interesting way to do a podcast today. I kind of went after you last minute. Hey, you got time to record something? And you said yeah. So thanks for doing that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Where do you live, Mike?
I'm in Fredericksburg, Virginia.
So what do you do up there?
Well, I work full time when I'm not doing what I actually enjoy doing. I work for Geico full time, and I should probably backtrack that just a second. I do enjoy working for them. I've been working for them for years, and it's a good company. But like, it's not my passion. It's not what I really want to do.
Yeah,
I run a website. It's called the Great Geek Refuge, and it all started actually coincidentally because of one of the other employees that worked with me. We would like on our lunch breaks and stuff. We would just sit around and talk about like comic books and movies and video games and sports and just all sorts of stuff. And we were like, we should do a podcast and like a website, and it birthed from there. Initially, it was just that there was no like meaning to it other than let's just talk about nerdy stuff. But it grew from there, and it ended up becoming like because when I also I'm a writer and I wrote a comic book a few years back, and I took it to like the comic cons and stuff like that and was selling it, and I realized how toxic the community tends to be. That there's a lot of like just like a lot of hate in general. So like for instance, if they see, let's say there's a female wearing a Batman shirt, a guy will somehow feel threatened by that and be like, "Oh, you're a Batman fan? Well, tell me your 5 favorite issues of all time and the best depictions and your favorite artist." And it's like,
right.
no, man. Like, yeah, so that was kinda like it kinda morphed into that. That's what our website became, was the antithesis of that. I don't want to be that kinda site. Like, I don't wanna foster that sort of mindset. I don't want anybody to think that that's acceptable and kinda like putting our foot down and like, this is the stand that we're gonna make.
How long ago was that you started this site?
This was 2014. So
Okay.
in July, it'll be 6 years that we've been doing it.
Why do you think it is that people get so defensive or like almost like puff up when they see somebody wearing a Batman shirt or a Superman shirt or whatever kind of shirt, and they want to just like attack them for maybe not having as much insider knowledge as they do on, episode 375 from 1972 or whatever?
I think it's a coping mechanism. So there was a time, because I think like roughly we're probably about the same age, like mid-30s.
Yeah, I'm a little older, but we
Oh,
don't have
okay,
to go into
alright, yeah, okay.
that.
It's okay, I got all this gray hair, so I look like I'm in, like, my
Yeah,
40s, so it's cool. I If you remember growing up, like, it wasn't cool to be a nerd at all. Like, you couldn't be a Star Trek fan. Like, you couldn't, like, wear that on your sleeve. Like, you couldn't be into Star Wars. If you were ostracized, you were a nerd, you were shunned, like, none of the cool kids would hang out with you. And
right.
as things have progressed in the 21st century, that's changed a lot. It's now cool to be nerdy, it's cool to be into that sort of stuff. I think that's a defense mechanism for all these guys who are a little bit older, who are used to being told, "You're not cool, you're lame for liking this thing." Now that it's so acceptable for all people to like it, they're like, "No, that was my thing. This is my thing. I loved it. I cherished it. You told me I was a nerd for liking it. You can't like it too because you're pretty or you're really cool and popular. There's no way that you have the same level of attachment to it that I do."
Mhm.
The worst part about it is like I think back then all anybody wanted was just for other people to accept them, and they've now flipped the script and they've become, the term in the industry is gatekeeper, where they have to make the determination on whether or not you're cool enough to like the thing that they like. It really sucks too because you're missing out on a ton of opportunity to kind of teach people to share this thing that we all love. Because I mean, like, be mad at it all you want, but like the more people that love it and buy the products, that means the more stuff you're going to get, the more movies, the more comic books, the novels. Like, it's only going to make it better. And it's just very short sighted for people to immediately puff up their chest and be like, you can't like this thing because I like it. And if you like it, then somehow I'm lesser. You're taking away the one thing that I have power over you on.
At the end of the day, it's all stories, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't understand why people would get so upset and defensive about it. Now, I don't know what I would consider myself. I'm probably more of like a casual fan of a bunch of different things. I'm not hardcore
Yeah.
really into any, franchise or superhero or whatever, but I'm a casual fan and I'll have discussions with my friends too, and some of them are pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
The most recent, of course, being the Star Wars, the last 3 movies that just came out with Star
Oh
Wars, and,
gosh. Yeah.
there's a lot of opinions out there, and
Yeah.
and I'm kind of like, "I don't know, I kinda liked it, I thought it was good." and
Exactly.
and
Like
the
that.
thing about it is, and I had this discussion just a few weeks ago with my one friend who, he's a pretty big fan, and he was going in through, talking about all of these storylines and all of these things that I really didn't understand. But then dude, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Are you getting any storms up there?
Not yet, no. It's been, like, dark and overcast all day, though.
Yeah, so the power just cut. There was like kind of like some rumbles outside. I'm like, oh man. And I turn around and then I look outside and it's just a sheet of hail. I took some video on my phone and like the wind across the street were like blowing stuffed trees like
It's crazy, dude.
crazy.
I took the advantage to take off my sweatshirt because, like, my studio is like my closet, as you can tell. Like, it's the closest thing I have to a soundproof room in my house, so
Yeah, so let's just try to pick up where we were. I wanted to tell you about, and I'm gonna just say the power may go out again because it's been flickering on and off
it's
since.
fine, dude. Yeah.
I've got a good friend of mine who's really big into Star Wars, and we had some discussions about the last couple of Star Wars movies. And his whole thing was the direction that Ryan Johnson wanted to go. Was it should he have seen it through and that kind of stuff? I was sitting with another friend of ours, his son, who's I think like 10 years old. What'd you think of the movie? It was awesome. So that's the thing that I looked
Yeah.
at him. I'm like, see, that's like how we were at 10 years old when we were watching these movies. It was awesome. And to those kids,
Yeah.
when they grow up, they're gonna look back and think it was awesome.
I'm gonna show you something, and, honestly, I'm literally talking about my geeky, nerdy website, so I really don't care how geeky or nerdy this seems when I show you, but it's fine because it proves a point. So this is a lightsaber that we built in Star Wars Land in Disney World. Why am I
Nice.
showing you this other than like showing off my toys like I'm a child? Uh, the reason why is because I have an 11-year-old son, right?
Yeah.
And ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to build a lightsaber like I was a Jedi. It was just something that I thought would be really cool. And they have this whole thing there where you get to do that. You get to experience it. And it's all
Yeah.
like in character. Like the people that work there are like, you can't even ask for a lightsaber because they're contraband. So you have to ask for like, where can I exchange some scrap metal? You go there and they're like in hushed tones. They're like, okay, we can't talk too much because the First Order might find us out, but we sense in you the Force and we want to give you the ability to build your own lightsaber. And I'm like, this is dope, right? And I'm really enjoying it. And then I'm looking at my son, who's really not a huge Star Wars fan at this point, but his mouth is agape, just watching this in fascination. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, I really want to build this thing. And I look at him and I'm like, no, you know what? I'm just going to record this and let him build it. And he was so excited. The whole thing, as soon as he lights it up the first time, oh, this is so cool. And
Yeah.
it really like solidifies your point that a lot of people are not getting the point that it's not just for us. It's not for the kids that grew up on Star Wars, the original trilogy, the prequels. This is to expand it, but it goes back to my point from beginning. It's a lesson in learning how to share the thing that you love and realizing that, hey, this may not have been made for me, but at least there's things that I can get out of this that I can enjoy. That last movie, you can say whatever you want about it. You can say that it was 4 hours of movie crammed into a 2.5 hour slot.
It was.
Yeah, it was totally. Um, if you didn't love that scene where Han Solo comes back to talk to his son, that was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in Star Wars. It was incredible.
Right.
Like Chewbacca finally gets his medal. It was little things. That was what it was for me. Is it was enjoyable. I
Yeah.
didn't feel like I wasted my time. I didn't feel like I wasted my money. I walked out of the theater and I was like, that was a lot of movie, but you know what? I'm cool. I feel like because it's Star Wars, people just set their expectations way too high.
And I felt like there was enough fans or old fan service in there to give the old heads the old tip of the cap to, but there was a ton of new stuff in there for the
Yeah.
kids, and I think the action packedness of it for the kids who aren't so well versed in the story, they probably just enjoyed the heck out of it.
We recorded a podcast last night, and one of the guys that was on said something that was really poignant, and he said, if you don't like something, you don't have to tell everybody every single reason why you didn't like it. You can just be
Yeah.
like, it wasn't for me because it was for somebody else, and somebody else may have really loved it. And if you take that much of your time and your energy and your effort just to crap all over something, it says more about you than it says about the thing that you're crapping on.
It reminds me of that meme of like there's a comic, the person saying, "I don't like thing," and then the angel flies down and hands them a little piece of paper, and he opens up the paper and it just says, "Okay."
That's exactly, yeah. Like I think it's part of the internet culture. I think the internet has bled into our society to the point where, because everybody has the ability to have a voice, not everybody realizes that you don't always have to use it.
Sure.
When you choose to speak and what you choose to say is just as important as being able to do it. I'm a huge music fan too, and I love the Foo Fighters. And they did a documentary called Sonic Highways. And in one of the songs they play, Joe Walsh of the Eagles fame is playing with them. One of the things they said that, and it like just always like stuck with me, is they said the amazing thing about Joe Walsh is not just the notes he plays, it's the notes he doesn't play. It's these like
Mhm.
in between spots where he'll just let the music kind of go and then he picks it up. Like, I didn't understand that at first, and then I heard the song, and I was like, "I know exactly what they're talking about now." A great song is not just chock full of noises, like, it's knowing when to do it and how to
Yeah.
do it and that's important.
Yeah, we know you can play your ass off, but when you hold back and restrict
Yeah,
yourself a little bit, it's those choices that you do make that really come
yeah,
through. So
absolutely.
you mentioned that you wrote a comic book and you took it to
Yeah.
Comic-Con. Tell me about that experience of writing a comic book.
A buddy of mine went to what's called the Joe Kubert School of Comic Book Art and Design up in Jersey. Joe Kubert is like a huge name in the comic book industry. Both of his sons are professional artists as well, $1 million contracts with DC and Marvel. And he's an amazing artist, but he cannot write a story to save his life. My friend, Ben Shaw is his name. He sucks at writing stories. And he calls me one night while he's in school and he's like, I have this project and I have to come up with a story and I want you to read over it and tell me what you think. And I was like, buddy, I love you. This is horrible. He's like, please help me. I need a good story. I need something. And I was like, all right. And I came up with a story of he's a paranormal investigator. So he's a PI, but instead of like private investigator, he's paranormal investigator.
Mhm.
So kind of like take a little Indiana Jones, take a little Ghostbusters, do that whole like film noir, like Sam Spade type of thing, and kind of mash it all together. And that's the story. It's called Ethan Stone PI. And it was really just an excuse to have fun with that trope, that film noir style with like the damsel in distress and like the black and white tones, throw ghosts and zombies and goblins and all sorts of other cool things. Like one of our episodes has the headless horseman of Sleepy Hollow, because that was always one of my favorite stories when I was a kid. At one point there's a giant snake demon that comes from a portal from hell. I mean, it's just all sorts of cool stuff like that. So we wrote it and then it was like, all right, cool, it's done. That's the end of it. Baltimore Comic-Con was coming up and this was like 2009, maybe 2010, somewhere in that range. And he's like, hey, how would you feel about publishing this? And I was like, well, how much would it cost us? And the price wasn't that bad. So we had issues printed up. We took it to Baltimore Comic Con, and I had never been to a convention before, ever. So I had like no geek street cred when it came to this thing.
Mhm.
We took it there, and it was just awesome. People were so inviting. People were so nice about it. Like, I was expecting like people to be very, very, very critical of every single thing we did, but they were like, "Oh, this is really cool. This is really awesome." Being able to pitch your stuff, the thing that you created, that you loved, and you put it on a paper and explain to somebody, "Hey, this is why this thing is awesome, and here's why you should buy it," is like, I can't really compare it to anything else, because if you've been in sales before, you're selling somebody else's product, whatever the company is that you're selling. But like, this was ours. This was our thing. If there was a way for me to do that full time, I totally would, but I cannot draw at all to save my life. And unfortunately, Ben has run into some physical ailments where he can't draw as much as he used to. So it is what it is. We got 2 issues out of it. We were like almost done with the third issue, and it was a cool ride while it lasted. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
When you say you brought it to Comic-Con, does that mean,
Mhm.
like, you bought a table and you had a table
Yes.
space there
I'm
and
sorry.
you
Yeah, I should have explained a little bit. Yeah.
No, 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 I mean,
So
I didn't know how it works, like, if you could just
oh,
did
yeah.
you make your money back at least on what you spent on getting the booth space?
Oh, we did, yeah. So
Okay.
we had to buy a table, in Artist Alley. We were able to sell out our entire first run. It was really, really cool, enough so that we did a reprint. Yeah, I mean, it was cool to make back that initial investment. Subsequent issues did not go as well, but the high of the whole thing was really, really cool. We took it to other conventions. We did Awesome Con up in DC. We did, Wizard World up in Philly, which was a nightmare for various reasons. It was so Wizard is like the big comic book publication, and it talks about all the things going on in the industry, and then you can find out like how much your stuff is worth if you want to sell your comic books. But all the people that came to Wizard World were there because of the guests. So it was like all of the Avengers were there. So everybody that was there had already spent $500 to meet all the Avengers and get their stuff signed and get pictures and stuff. So they didn't really have a budget to buy comic books. It really wasn't a creator friendly show,
Ah,
and Baltimore Con is, and Awesome Con in DC is much more creator friendly. I didn't know this. I literally thought all comic book conventions were the same. So like I'm getting this trial by fire learning course in what the differences are in Comic Cons and stuff like that. So it was part of it was humbling, part of it was just really cool, parts of it were frustrating, but like, yeah, I mean, I would do it again. In fact, this year we actually got GGR got invited to AwesomeCon to have our own panel. And you've probably seen videos of these before from some of the other cons where the people are just up there talking to whoever wants to show up, but we get to do a panel on diversity and inclusiveness in the geek world. So
Yeah.
and we didn't even prompt this. Like they asked us, which was like mind blowing to me. They were like, "Hey, how would you feel about doing this?" And I was like, "I didn't. What? How did this happen? Who submitted this?"
I was gonna ask you about how
Yeah,
your message that you guys put out there through GGR and through your
yeah.
podcast and through just your whole organization, how has that been received in the community?
When we first started the website, there really wasn't as big a push for it, right? Somewhere along the way, I mean, this is within the last like 2 or 3 years, I kind of shifted the message. The reason why is because I had worked with other publications and saw that that wasn't a focus for them, and that really bothered me. And I ended up like breaking off the relationships with those other publications because it wasn't fitting with our message. I'm trying to tell people we're inclusive and we don't do anything to exclude people, and then these other publications that I'm working with are basically like making these hardline stances about stuff like that. So when I broke free of that, my wife actually said this to me. She was like, as soon as he went independent and stopped teaming up with other people, like the message became much more clear and it seemed much more genuine. The response has been great. I mean, like we're talking about like the number of people who subscribe to our podcast has like quadrupled. Like it's incredible. Like I'm incredibly humbled by it all the time when I realize that there's like tens of thousands of people who listen to the dumb stuff that flows out of my mouth on a regular basis. We've had some of our articles that just like went viral. Like one of our guys, Ben Shapiro, not that Ben Shapiro, a different one. Um, he wrote an article about he likes to go not antiquing, but like thrifting, like go to thrift shops and find what crazy stuff you can find. And he found this insane airbrushed portrait of Leonardo DiCaprio, wrote an article about it, and it just like for whatever reason people just thought that was amazing and it just took off. And the message seems really clear now, and like people are responding really really well. I'm getting
Yeah.
messages out of nowhere where people are like, "Hey, I'd really like to be involved with your organization," because we're basically like open submission. If you want to work with us, you can. And I never thought that would happen.
What would that entail? Just writing articles for the site, or what is there more to it?
Yeah, writing articles for the site, podcasting if you want to podcast, because I taught myself how to do all of this stuff. I mean, there's like a basic understanding that I had from like doing video editing when I was in high school and college,
Mhm.
but audio editing was pretty much the same thing. Linear timeline, chop your stuff up, put your edits in. It's not that hard. But I taught myself like how to create an RSS feed and like all of the other things about it. As I mentioned before, like I feel like everybody should have a voice, you know, it's part of the internet. But if you don't know how to, if you don't know how to create a podcast, I'm willing to help you do it. Once you get past that first hump, the rest of it's pretty easy. Yeah, like if you want to write for us, you can write for us. I don't own your stuff. I don't own anybody's content. That's theirs. It's basically just a place to house it. And it's the same thing with podcasts. If you end up wanting to create your own website, or some other organization reaches out to you, I'll gladly give you every single one that you have and we'll keep it up or take it down. It's up to you. I just want people to be comfortable with a place to talk about this stuff and not have to worry about that extra judgment that we talked about.
So how many contributors do you guys have?
I mean, I would say somewhere between a dozen to 24 or 25. Like I've never gotten more than that.
Mhm.
But like we have some full timers, we got some part timers, we got some people who did it for a while and then they left and they're like, oh, hey, I just came up with an article like 4 years later. I don't really put too many expectations on them where it's like, you need to have an article once a month. Like, I don't want to be like J. Jonah Jameson and like, you need this now. It's pretty freeform. I just want it to be when you feel the spark to talk or to write, you'll have a place to do it.
And how much time are you putting into it when you balance your work life, family life, all that stuff?
Oh my God, way more than I should probably. I A lot. We podcast every week, so we do about 2 to 3 hours of podcasting, and then I edit, which takes, depending on what I wanna do with the podcast, it could take a few hours, it could take more. I would say I'm probably putting at least, like, 15 to 20 hours a week on it, if not more,
Mhm.
because I am also trying to edit the articles too if somebody creates an article. Luckily, I brought on the same Benjamin Shapiro I mentioned earlier. He's actually an editor too. So I've gotten all these other guys who feel passionate about the message who want to help out as well. And hopefully, fingers crossed, one of these days I can figure out how to do the whole advertising thing when maybe we can make a little scratch on the side too
Yeah.
to help out with that.
Well, I mean, if you guys already got asked to be on a panel, You got to think
right?
the advertising is not too far behind.
I would think so too, yeah, and, like, it's one of those things where I don't want it to dilute what we're doing. I don't want it to be like, "Hey, check out our great article," and then there's, like, just ad upon ad upon ad on the website, like, that always bothers me when I'm reading articles.
Yeah.
So it's trying to find that happy balance without inundating people with ridiculously oppressive ads, you know? Like, those creepy ones where it's like you searched one thing, like, 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago, and all of a sudden ads are popping up on Facebook. Yeah, "Hey, wanna buy this hat?" Like, wow, that's weird. Yeah, I don't want it to be
You
like
know how
that.
many sunglass ads I have in all of my feeds right now?
Right? Like, I'm a huge DC sports fan, right? I'm a huge, Nationals fan. Like, I'm actually wearing a Nationals shirt right now. It says, "Bang foul poles, not trash cans." I went and bought a Nationals World Championship T-shirt, right? And then all of a sudden, every single day on Facebook, it's like, "Hey, remember this shirt you looked at and you didn't buy? Now it's on discounted." It's like, you guys are diabolical
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah.
Like, part of it's convenient because it's like, well, I kinda do wanna buy this, but
Yep.
I don't know. All right, fine. Yeah. Like I'm not one of those people that thinks that it's intrusive per se. It can get that way, but it's almost like convenient in a way
Right.
sometimes.
So you're a writer. What are some of the other things that you are writing?
For a while, when you looked on GGR as far as the content was concerned written wise, like 90% of it was
Yeah.
mine. I was writing all the articles, all the reviews. It's become much more balanced as I've brought in more writers. I wrote for Yahoo for a while, but that was actually before GGR and before the comic book. I'm working on a novel right now that could eventually become a comic book if somebody wanted to draw it, but I'm not writing it for the intent of a
Mm.
comic book.
Any hints as to what that's about?
So there was a BuzzFeed article a few years back that I fell in love with, and like I know everybody's hearing BuzzFeed and they're like, "Oh, those stupid surveys." No, they actually have legitimate articles as well. It was about a guy who was from Detroit, had moved away for college, and then came back home and just saw like the state of affairs of the city, how it was crumbling, how the government had just like completely screwed them over because of corruption and various things, and there were entire swaths of the city that were basically abandoned. For $500, he bought a house that was like crumbling and he rebuilt the entire thing. And like within this, as he's rebuilding it, he's talking about the history of the city and how it's trying to rebuild and how it's trying to create its own community. And it was just a fascinating read. And I started thinking, I was like, let's nerd it up a little bit. Let's say there's a superhero and something happens and he's traumatized and he wanted to go hide and he just wanted nobody to be able to find him. What city in the United States could you hide and no one would be able to find you? Detroit. It's a story about him going there to escape and then kind of realizing little by little that whole Spider-Man thing with great power comes great responsibility, that even while he's there, he can't just ignore what he has, and he wants to use his powers and gifts to help people, so he tries to help the people that are living in Detroit. It's still really, really early in
Yeah.
it. I'm, like, maybe first draft right now, but, like, I'm really enjoying the process. It's different than anything I've written in a while, but it's a lot of fun
That's
too.
cool, man. I like that. I like that idea. That's
Well,
great.
thanks. I appreciate it. As soon as it's done, I'll send you a copy and you can read it.
Cool. All right. Hey, give me some more stuff, man. Where can people find you if they wanna know more?
Best place to find us is, I mean, you can go directly to the website. It's greatgeekrefuge.com. We're all over Facebook. We're all over Twitter. When it comes to the podcast, we're on Spotify. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on whatever they're calling iTunes
Yeah.
now. I think it's Apple
So you're everywhere.
Podcasts. Yeah, I try to make us as easily accessible as
And what are the
possible.
goals, long-term goals for GGR? Are you gonna quit Geico and, this is gonna be it?
I would love to. That would be
Yeah.
fantastic. It,
I mean, I think that's the goal for pretty much anybody who's doing stuff like this
yeah,
is to pour your whole heart into
for
it. Yeah.
sure, for sure. And that's the thing is that's I'm able to do that. I know for some people it's hard for them to differentiate where it's like, well, if I've got one thing I'm really focusing on, I can't do both. I can. I can do both. And I really enjoy what I do in my professional life, but also too I really enjoy this nerdy stuff that I get to do too because it's a chance to connect with people and like that's honestly like the best part about any of this. Writing stories, doing podcasts, writing articles is being able to have that connection where you get to talk about something that you really love and somebody gets to share that with you. Like if I could make this my job, I totally would. It's just I don't know anything about the financial side of it at all. I have to figure that part out. That's like my next big
Yeah.
goal. But yeah, keep doing like panels and stuff at Comic Cons. I'm a big believer in trying to help out. Like there's a nonprofit organization here in Fredericksburg called Micah Ecumenical Ministries, and what they do is all of their proceeds, everything they receive, donations for clothing, for furniture, all of it goes towards helping the homeless. And same thing with like monetary donations, it goes to helping feed them. And I'm a big believer in that. And right now we're doing a special. We have a Teespring shop. You can look it up. It's GGR. Just look up GGR T-shirt shop. Every single T-shirt that we sell, all the proceeds from the T-shirts are going to be going to Micah to help them with this,
Awesome.
because we're all supposed to be staying at home right now. Well, that's great for people who have a home, but what about those who don't?
Yes.
So we want to. I just feel like if this is going to become a business one day, I want it to be something where it makes a positive impact and helps people, and not just like lines my
Yeah.
pockets.
Yeah. Well, you know, one of the things I've noticed about doing this type of thing and having a microphone in your face, and when you're talking about things that you love to do or to, you know, interests or hobbies or whatever it is, when you hear feedback from people that, "Hey, I like it
Yeah,
too." It feels really good, and it
yeah,
just makes you wanna
yeah.
continue because you found your tribe. It's a good feeling to have that connection with people and people that you've never met before, people who reach out and wanna tell you that, "Hey, they like that thing too."
That's the coolest thing
Yeah.
about this too, is like, there's a guy in West Virginia. His name is Andy Barsh. Andy Barsh was the first ever I didn't actually know you person that joined GGR, because I put out like a Facebook ad. I was like, hey, anybody want to write for us, and we won't be able to pay you?
Mhm.
And he said yes. And we've become friends, and we joke about it, that we say to each other, we're like, you're the best friend that I've never actually met. We have a lot of people that are like that are writers and podcasters for GGR, where you get this connection with them and you've never actually physically seen their face. And it's incredible. It's what the internet was meant to
Yeah.
be, not just a place to complain about Star Wars.
Mhm.
That's what I feel it's always been meant to be.
I wanna ask you another thing because,
Yeah.
on another Star the other Star series, which I
Yeah.
am
Star Trek.
I don't even know what I would call myself. I'm somebody who watched the original, like, you know, when it was on TV when I was a kid, like, if it was on, like, you know, just syndicated afternoons or whatever. And then I watched
Yeah.
Next Generation, same type of thing. So I wasn't ever, like, super into it, but I kinda started recently getting back into it with Discovery, and of course, I've seen the movies, but I started watching Discovery, and then when Picard came out, I watched all that. I just finished that, like, last week, and I wanted to hear what you thought about Picard, the series.
Star Trek: The Next Generation for me is like a security blanket. As a kid, I had like this crappy TV in my bedroom that had awful signal, because Star Trek was only shown on like the at the time it was WDCA TV 20. So that's how I got to watch Star Trek. I would go to bed at night watching Star Trek: The Next Generation. That's how I would fall asleep. So now, like if I'm like having a bit of insomnia, I'll put Netflix on and watch Star Trek: The Next Generation and fall asleep to it. I absolutely love Star Trek. I love Star Wars, but Star Trek is like my first love. That one, I don't know what it is about that one. It's just something about it. The first season of Discovery was okay. Second season was better. They fixed a lot of the problems. Picard was a work of art, in my opinion. It was exactly what it needed to be. It wasn't overly preachy, but it still had a good message. It took that heart and soul of the next generation, these messages of like, what is life? Is an android that's gained sentience, is that living? What is that? And they really push the envelope with that. They give you more than just a 45-minute episode. Like you get 10 episodes of this story, and they expand upon it. And when you first start watching it, you're like, man, this universe is dark. Everything sucks. Everyone's dead. Everyone's got trauma in their life. All the bad guys seem to be winning. But then like you start seeing that like this little glimmer of hope becomes much bigger and bigger and bigger, because the people that have the hope refuse to give up on it. The message was just incredible. And like it had its flaws. There were certain things I didn't like about it. You've seen the whole thing, right?
Yes.
The way they handled the end with, I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it. The way they handle the end, where it's like, oh, this thing happened, and you're like, man, that's sad. And they're like, oh, no, just kidding. There's a whole way for this person to come back.
Don't
And you're
worry, we're
just
gonna
like,
do season 2.
yeah, exactly. I was just kind of like, that's, at first I was like, this is a ballsy move, man.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, they're going to use the thing. Yeah, they use the thing.
Right,
Oh,
right.
okay. All right. Well, whatever. It bummed me out a little bit, but like still for me, this is for Star Trek, for Star Wars, they use the analogy, pizza, even when pizza's bad, it's good.
Mhm.
Same thing with Star Wars, same thing with Star Trek. It's still something I love and I still get a kick out of it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the people who were like, this is not my Star Trek, this is not my Star Wars, just shut up, dude. Like, just get over it. Just sit back and enjoy something. Like, stop being so critical of everything. Like, I feel like so many people watch these franchises with their arms crossed like this, like pissed off the whole time. Like, it's okay. You can unclench your jaw and just enjoy something.
For me, it was just like it started out as just pure nostalgia. Like I wanted to watch it
Right? Yeah.
because I watched it growing up. Even though I wasn't super into it, I still watched it. For me, I started out watching it for that reason, but I got pretty entrenched in the story and in the characters, and as they would introduce some of the, when Riker when he showed up at Riker's house, and
Oh, that was the best.
yeah, I mean that was such a great episode. That
Riker flipping pizzas and stuff,
there
dude. That
yeah,
was
yeah, and their
yeah.
relationship and, I loved it. I thought it was great, and I'm glad you were able to articulate exactly how you felt about it because I couldn't put that into words the way you just did. So,
Dude, I would have a really crappy website and podcast if I couldn't take the nerdy things and explain why I like them. So,
yeah, I mean, because that's the thing, like, I can't explain why I like the things that I like. I just know that I like
yeah.
them, and that's why I'll sit through all 10 episodes.
Yeah. The only thing, if I was gonna have like one nit to pick about it, is like, and they did this in Discovery too, man. Boy, do they love using the F word. Like
Yeah.
it's like they weren't allowed to do it because they were on regular broadcast television before, but
Yeah,
and now that they're like, wait, we're on a streaming service, we can say whatever the F we want. And
yeah,
it's like, okay, I get it, but at the same time too, like you can overuse that. Again, I'm not gonna like tell them how to write their show, but like I don't feel like any of those were really necessary. Like there was the one where the admiral was like lecturing Picard when he's like, "Hey, I want a ship," and she's like, "You've got some effing nerve."
yes.
I was like, "Okay, I'm good with that because that fits because she's absolutely right." But like for the most part, it just seems superfluous.
Yeah, there were a couple of instances, and I think that might have been I definitely remember that scene, but there were a couple of instances where I was just like, I don't know if that was necessary. It feels like you just put it in there just because you can."
Yeah, like the other time they used it was when they did the flashback where they were showing what happened on Mars. Like
Mhm.
all the mechanics and stuff like that, they were all like cursing up a storm. But
Yeah,
like later, the same admiral curses again, and I was like, all right, well they're setting a trend here that this admiral loves the F word. Okay,
yeah,
that's fine. All right, that was one of the things that I liked about it is like Star Trek: The Next Generation was smart. Like it used big words. It made you want to understand these big words. It made you want to understand. And Picard could rip somebody to pieces without actually insulting them. And they've shied away from that a little bit. And it is what it is. I mean, I think they're trying to reach a modern audience with this. So I
yeah.
mean, I get it.
Yeah, I just like seeing those actors play those characters again,
Oh, yeah.
and
It's like seeing long lost friends. Yeah.
yeah, there's gonna be a Parks and Rec special coming up. I don't know if you were a fan of that show.
Yeah.
Um, but
We just had a conversation about the episode with Werner Herzog, where he's trying to sell the house. Oh, the doll. No, it wasn't the doll head factory. It was the place where people who went insane from working on the assembly line were kept. Oh, that's yeah. I love that show.
Well, did you see that there's gonna be an episode on April 30th?
Is there really?
They're going to do a scripted full episode, each character from home, but they will be in character, and
Yeah,
it'll
I
be
got to
on.
clear my schedule now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, when I saw that, it's like, yes, I need to see these
Yeah.
actors play these characters again.
Exactly, and like to kind of go back to Star Trek for a second, to get to see because anybody who saw the movies knows that Nemesis is often maligned by fans and non-fans alike. For them to take what happened in Star Trek Nemesis, like the way that Data died, and they really put some perspective into it, and they gave him a chance to rectify that, and I thought that was really awesome. I really enjoyed just the way they handled it. Again, I don't want to spoil it, but like you should. Data has a lot to do with Star Trek Picard,
Mhm.
and the way they handled it was just I thought was artful. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and, I think it's safe to say that he'll never play that character again, though.
No, I
Mm,
don't. I mean, we might see other versions of him as he played a Doctor Soong. We still don't know exactly where Lore is, so
mm.
Lore could be popping around at some point. That might be fun. But yeah, I think we've seen the last of Data for sure.
What about, expectations for season 3 of Discovery?
I don't know how I feel like because season 2 did this okey doke where they introduced this amazing captain. Like Anson Mount, the guy who played Captain Pike,
Mhm.
was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like he was so good. I just want to see him now on the Enterprise. I don't even care about Discovery. Stay in the future, whatever. Just do whatever. Leave me alone. Give me more Enterprise. I want to see more of that.
Mhm.
I'm interested to see what they're going to do and how they're going to handle it because again, it's Star Trek. I'm going to watch it no matter what. But the way they handled the end of season 2, like you have this awesome villain that's really really interesting, but they paint themselves in the corner because they're saying, "Oh no, this is the regular timeline. It's going to be exactly like what you
Yeah.
saw with the other series. It's going to fit directly in there." But then you introduce this thing in Control, like that AI system that doesn't really fit with what we had in the original series. So the only way they can fix that problem is by sending the ship to the future. Like it's they had these really really great ideas and then ended up kind of stepping on themselves because they forced themselves
Yeah.
into a timeline when honestly they could have just set it after Star Trek The Next Generation, like where Picard takes place. They could have put it there and it would have been just as fine.
Well, I will say about that show, my wife and I started watching it, and it was her first and only Star Trek experience. Like, that was it.
Oh
Other
yeah.
than the recent movies, that was her only introduction to Star Trek was through Discovery, like watching a season of it and getting a story. And
What did
she
she think of it? Because I'm curious, like as a
well
newcomer to it, basically.
well, yeah, she was a complete newcomer, and she was ready for every episode as they were. We binged them all, and she was ready for the next one. So she wanted to keep watching it.
That's
She got
awesome.
into it. She had no basis for any of the stories or any of the characters, and I tried to explain what I knew. And trust me, I don't know what you know about this kind of stuff. I just
Yeah.
know, like, well, I think that's the captain that was before Kirk.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's all you really need to know. Yeah.
yeah,
It's one of those things where because I love Star Trek so much, I know a ton about it. And I'm watching these things, I'm like, "Oh, does this really fit?" But for the most part, I it just takes me back to being a kid.
yeah.
I'm just watching these stories, I'm watching these ships do these awesome things, and I'm entertained. And like I think that that's really what kind of saves it for me. I try not to think about it too hard because if I think about it too hard, then like you're taking away from what it's meant to be. It's supposed to be entertaining. And to put that much thought and effort into trying to dissect something, you lose. It's just like anything else. If you take like a painting that was done and you really study every single nuance of it, you're going to find imperfections and things like that. But the imperfections is what makes the art great in the first place.
You know what? I just realized this as I was talking to you, but I realized the reason why I don't get so bent out of shape about storylines and timelines and whether or not things are possible when I'm watching a sci-fi show or movie or, something like the Avengers or whatever is because it's so out of the realm of possibility of ever happening in real life that I
Yeah.
suspension of disbelief. Like, completely can just let anything happen and be fine with it. Now,
Yeah.
my wife will tell you when we're watching a movie that is supposed to take place in the real world and things are out of, ridiculous, I will go off. Like Home
Yeah.
Alone, there is no way in Home Alone that those people can survive. The burglars can
Oh no, the
survive
paint.
a
Yeah.
blowtorch to the head, getting
Yeah.
a paint can to the face. And so
Yeah.
when we watch Home Alone every year, I have to leave the room because I get so upset that there's no way that could happen. It's the most ridiculous thing. How come the cops don't go? She's in France calling the cops, and the cops like, well, everything seems fine.
Nobody's here. Yeah, that's garbage. Yeah, yeah. There's no. That's the worst cop on the face of the planet. Yeah,
So
exactly.
I guess I could understand that with some
Yeah.
geek culture people getting all bent out of shape about warp drive or whatever.
Well, the funny thing about that too is like the thing that it always makes me laugh, right? Is people will be like, oh, well, if the Starship Enterprise were to go up against a Star Destroyer from Star Wars, the Star Destroyer has 15 ion cannon turrets, and it's gonna like, okay, first off, this is all fictional, okay? So if these two universes actually collided, you have this thing called plot armor. So what it is whoever's writing that, that's going to be who's more powerful. Period. That's the end of the conversation. And they'll come back. Oh, there's tech manuals. Tech manuals for fictional stuff? No. Get out of my face with that. I want a good story. I
Yeah.
don't care if it's technically sound to this book that was written by people years ago. It doesn't matter. Like, just let it go. It's supposed to be fun. It's just like with anything else. Everybody just wants an answer. They want like an answer that they can 2 plus 2 is 4. And stories don't work like that.
Do you think stories that were written with the intent of being fun and just to be a story and to be entertaining that have gotten scrutinized and turned into this big cult following, do you think that that in some way has changed the objective of what the original author wanted to put out there, which was just a good fun story? And now they have to go back and say, well, now I got to figure out what a tech manual looks like for this starship.
Yeah, for sure. Because look at Galaxy Quest, for instance. Galaxy Quest is literally a rip on Star Trek in general. Every single aspect of that movie is making fun of Star Trek, but people have scrutinized that too. Oh, well, I wonder exactly what it is they're making fun of. What are they referencing here? Who cares? It's fun. Same thing with what's his name? Seth MacFarlane did a Star Trek series called The Orville. I mean, it's not a Star Trek series, but it's Star Trek.
Yeah.
Like, let's not.
I have not watched much. I've seen like maybe the first episode, but people have said that's really good.
It's fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's not. It's for all those people who are saying I don't like this new Star Trek because it's like it's not episodic and it's one giant story over 10 episodes. Watch The Orville because that's exactly what it is, and it's written by the guys who wrote Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, so it's really got a TNG feel. It's like if they wrote Star Trek: The Next Generation, but then also had Seth MacFarlane from Family Guy on there too, because there's like some really funny MacFarlane moments. Like at one point they're in the holodeck and they're in like a it's like a Mexican town and they're about to have a standoff with these banditos. Like the lead bandito is like standing on top of like a building and he's like, okay, there's only one way to settle this. Dance off. And all of a sudden like this techno music starts playing and like the other guys are looking at him. He's like, this is what you programmed? He's like, yeah, it's going to be awesome, isn't it? Like things like that, like little one-liners and little bits and pieces are really like, it gives it a whole different feel, but it's a lot of fun.
You know what other space show I've been enjoying is Avenue 5. Have you seen that?
I haven't. No, I haven't heard. I haven't heard of that one actually.
It's
Avenue 5. What is
Avenue
that on?
5. It's on HBO.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah, it's Hugh Laurie, Dr. House.
Oh, it's got to be good then. Okay.
Yeah, it's hilarious. It's so fun. It has nothing to do with science at all. It's just about
A confident, controlled, and personable space cruise ship captain tries to get along with everyone, and it's got Hugh Laurie in it. So okay, yeah, I'm down.
and
I'll have to check it out.
what's the other guy's name? The guy who plays Olaf in Frozen.
Josh Gad.
Josh Gad, yeah.
Yeah.
So he's like the rich billionaire who owns the cruise ship, the space cruise ship.
That's fantastic.
You got to check it
Okay,
out.
yeah.
It's hilarious.
I'm in. Yeah, I definitely will. The other one that everybody's been talking about that I haven't seen yet is called The Expanse. They say that The Expanse is really, really good sci-fi, so I'll have to check that one out too.
Oh, I think is that on Netflix?
I think that one was originally on the Sci-Fi Channel, and then Amazon Prime picked it up.
Oh, okay. I don't got anything else. This turned into a really good conversation about stuff that I didn't even know I wanted to talk about.
That's cool, dude. That's sometimes those are the best podcasts, man, when you just go free form, you know?
Yeah,
that's always enjoyable.
Well, like I said before, I appreciate you taking the time. Sorry about the power outage. That was a crazy, crazy storm that just busted through here. And how long have you been doing your podcast?
We started it was like December of 2014 because we started the website in July and then we started podcasts in December of 2014. We took a little break there in the middle because we were working with those other organizations, but we came back. I think we're going into year 3 now where it's been back on GGR. So it's we just call it like one thing. We've been podcasting for like 6 years now. So
you're in the hundreds of episodes.
Oh God, yes, way too many episodes probably.
You guys are old pros at this.
Yeah, I would think so. Well, we haven't really gotten paid, so we're still amateurs. But yeah, like it's a ton of fun, and like the thing we're doing now, we call it the diner, because I feel like it's a cultural touchstone where everybody at one point or another has gone out with their friends to a diner, whether it was after a night at the bars or whatever, and you've had these amazing conversations about whatever. And that's basically how we term it, is just us talking about everything under the sun with a bunch of friends.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks again for taking the time. I appreciate it. And I'm going to check out GGR podcast since we just literally met. I have not had a chance to do that yet, but I'm going to, and I hope everybody who's listening also does the same thing, especially if you're into all this stuff that Mike is talking about.
And we mix it up a little bit too. Like it's not just nerdy, geeky stuff. I mean, like I'm wearing a sports shirt right now. I mean, like we're big sports nerds. We talk about sports a lot.
Yeah.
We love music. We talk about music a lot. Like we're all over the map. Pretty much if you can get geeky and nerdy about it, we'll talk about it. There's very few limits to what we will and won't talk about.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, but hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. And I love your podcast too. I listened to the Aaron Spicer episode. We got to give him a plug. But I listened to some of the other ones too, man. I really enjoy what you do.
Yeah, I mean, the one with Aaron was another one like this. I didn't really have everything's been kind of crazy for me the last couple of weeks. So it's just like, hey, you want to record? Sure. So I'll just hook up a Zoom or a Squadcast or something like that, and we'll just hit record and see where it goes.
He's easy to interview though, because he's such a Renaissance man.
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, hey, did you know that I ran marathons? Wait, what? You did? Yeah. Oh, and I also scavenged for mushrooms in the woods behind my house. You what? Like he just does everything. Yeah. Like he's like the person that you want to be, because he's like so diverse.
I stopped drinking and then I fought a bear with my hand.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I'm going to turn this old barn into a house and then sell it. Like, wow, really, Aaron? Jeez, man. Just relax, dude. Take a break. Watch some TV.
All right, man. Good talk.
Hey, it was, man. I appreciate you having me.
All right. All right, everyone. That's it. Thanks to Mike for coming on the podcast on super short notice, and I thank him for sticking around during that crazy storm and power outage. Make sure you check out greatgeekrefuge.com to read some of their hot takes on your favorite shows and movies. It's really great stuff, well written, and most importantly, welcoming to fans of all levels, from hardcore nerd to casual fan. Also, be sure to check out their podcast, which is called GGR Pirate Radio. And of course, you can get that anywhere you get your podcasts. And if you dig what I'm screaming, make sure you leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. I read and appreciate all feedback I receive, good or bad. You can also email me at caughtbyhappy@gmail.com and follow Caught by Happy on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and yes, even TikTok, which is really just for the kiddos. All right, everybody, thanks for swinging on by. I'll see you next time. Caught by Happy is powered by Ring Media. Join the Ring Media Network and let's make good stuff together.